Welcome. In high school, you learned a simple approach to writing papers. This is called the 5-paragraph essay. It contains 3 sections: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. And, in truth, this is a fantastic way to think about all academic writing: journal articles, book chapters, review essays, even entire books. They all have the same 3 major parts: an introduction, supporting material, and a conclusion. This week, we'll read the first assigned journal article of the semester. As we'll see, it's organized exactly like a 5-paragraph essay. It's just bigger. So, if you don't have the article in front of you, please get it now. The skills covered in this video will help you with this article and all others that you read, both in this and other classes. Let's briefly review the 3 major parts of a 5-paragraph essay. The introductory paragraph does 2 things. First, it introduces the topic. Then, it states the thesis. The 3 supporting paragraphs offer evidence that supports the thesis, and the conclusion both restates the thesis and the supporting points in the essay. All of this is also present in a journal article. However, the difference is that each paragraph is now transformed into a larger section. So, the introductory paragraph is now several paragraphs, and those paragraphs together comprise an introductory section. So too, instead of individual supporting paragraphs, we have individual supporting sections, and each supporting section is usually several pages long. Finally, the conclusion of an article functions in the same way as the conclusion of a 5-paragraph essay. It repeats the basic argument and the major points already made. When you download something from JSTOR, you always get a title page. Every article in JSTOR gives you a title page, just like this one. The first line tells you the title of the article. The second line tells you the author of the article. Beginning with the third line, we find further bibliographical information, such as the title of the journal, its volume and issue number, and page numbers. All of this material must be included in a bibliographical citation of the article. Otherwise, your citation will be incomplete. When you read an article, you want to read strategically. We call this gutting an article. First, you'll read the introduction. Then, you'll flip through the body of the article, not reading it, but instead looking at how it's organized. The last step of gutting is to read the conclusion. The first section of an article will always be the introduction. The last section will always be the conclusion. You can apply this strategy to reading academic books, too, although, instead of starting with the introduction, you would start by looking at the book's table of contents. The introduction of an article is usually just a few paragraphs, perhaps totaling a couple of pages. Always read it first. Every academic publication strives to contribute to the body of knowledge. So, the first thing to look for in an article is how the author sets up their topic. In the introduction of this article, the author quotes several other scholars. We see 2 quotes on the first page, and still another quote on the second page. But then look at what he does. After this last quote, the author, Fred Randel, writes, "I suggest, by contrast, that Mary Shelley's novel is an astute extension and complication of the political geography of the Gothic, as applied to the spread of revolutionary ideas and revolution itself in Europe and beyond since the mid-17th century." Notice his use of the phrase, "by contrast." The wording is intentional. He's constructing his argument using a point-counterpoint contrast, and then, in the rest of the article, he gives us his evidence. Before we go on, let's go back to the thesis statement. You might also call it his statement of purpose. I know exactly what is happening as soon as I read the phrase, "I suggest by contrast." He's telling me what he's going to tell me, and that means he's telling me his argument. In a well-written article, the author will explicitly state the problem that they are trying to address, and that makes this thesis statement an effective one. I recognize that this might conflict with what we've been taught about writing in the past. We're often taught to avoid redundancy, and it's definitely redundant to write that we are going to do what we're going to do. However, it is better to be explicit and redundant and therefore clear than to avoid redundancy but risk being vague. Once you read the introduction and have located the thesis statement, flip through the article's remaining sections. Your goal now is to get a sense of how the article is organized. Make a mental note of anything that breaks with the narrative flow. This would include such things as artwork, photographs, or any charts or tables. Some essays will have subheadings, and as we flip through the pages, we find that after the introduction, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and ultimately 5 sections. But of course, subheadings aren't the only important organizational tool. There's one other: topic sentences. Simply stated, a topic sentence is the thesis of a paragraph. A well-written paragraph will begin with a topic sentence. So, as you get the body of an article, you should also look for the topic sentences. As soon as we flip past section 5, we find the essay's endnotes, and that tells us that section 5 is also the conclusion. At this point, stop gutting. Instead, read the concluding section. You want to look for how the conclusion aligns with the article's introduction. By way of example, think of tire alignment on a car. If your tires are aligned, you have a smooth ride. But if they're out of alignment, things will be a bit more bumpy. An effective conclusion will align with the introduction by doing the following. It will restate the thesis, and it will restate the major supporting points. An effective conclusion will not introduce new arguments. The conclusion exists only to summarize. And finally, once you finish gutting, go back and read the rest of the article in full. When it comes to writing your own papers, all of this is quite practical, and this is true of any course, not just this one. Like a 5-paragraph essay, a research paper should have the 3 major sections of introduction, body, and conclusion. Your introduction should do 2 things. It should note both the problem that you want to address and how you resolve that problem. Your proposed resolution is also your thesis statement. The body of your paper will then consist of subsections. Subheadings and topic sentences are 2 crucial organizational tools because they help the reader understand your paper's organization and thus how you support your thesis. Finally, your conclusion should align with your introduction by restating your thesis and your main points. When it comes to effective communication, you may have heard it said, tell him what you told him, and then tell him again. Yes, this is repetitious, but it's also effective. In your conclusion, restate your thesis statement. And finally, remember, when writing a history paper, an effective conclusion only summarizes. It never introduces new arguments. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button. Feel free to leave a comment, and I'll see you next time.